The Shutdown, Part 2. What are the Republicans thinking? I kept the invective at bay last time. Not sure I'll be able to handle it today. Do Republicans really think that their tactics are going to get the Democratic Senate and President Obama to sabotage the Affordable Care Act? Maybe not. I think this is really about something else. Let's review. Is Obamacare socialized medicine? No, actually it's not. One of the great ironies of the Affordable Care Act is that it was cooked up in a right-wing think tank, the Heritage Foundation. You're kidding, right? No, I'm not. I'll link you to an interview with the conservative who thought it up, the actual guy. Look, it might have been a government-run health service like Britain's NHS. By the way, the U.S. happens to run that kind of health care for the military and veterans, but it's not that. It might have been a system where providers are independent and the government pays people's medical bills, like Canada's Medicare. By the way, the U.S. also has a couple of those, one for seniors, also called Medicare, and one for the poor called Medicaid. But it's not that. So what is it? Well, what the Heritage Foundation devised was a plan where healthcare providers remain private and independent, and they're paid by private insurance companies. Oh, the horror. What the plan does is actually make it easier. It actually requires people to buy private health insurance. And if they can't afford it, it offers subsidies. It says you can't be denied insurance if you have a pre-existing condition. It says you can't be thrown off your insurance if you run up too many bills because of chronic illness. It provides a competitive marketplace for insurance companies to offer a range of plans. And if you have insurance from your work, you get to keep it. It's the most market-friendly way to expand health coverage. And Republicans actually favored it up until the point where a Democratic president was able to put it into law. What happened then? Well, suddenly it became tyranny, socialism, Keynesian, government takeover of medicine, death squads. All, let me be frank, lies. Opponents of Obamacare attacked it in the media, especially Fox News and right-wing talk radio. Opponents of Obamacare, like the Koch brothers, have run deceptive advertising about the program for the past 3 years. Opponents of Obamacare also attacked it in the courts, but the Supreme Court upheld it. Opponents of Obamacare also made it a key issue of the last presidential campaign. But the voters rejected the guy who wanted to repeal it. And finally, just as the law is going into effect, some opponents of Obamacare became so desperate to stop it, they forced the government shutdown, and now they're threatening to torpedo the world economy if they don't get their way. Well, we have a name for people who act like that. What's the name? Terrorists. I think Republicans are terrified Obamacare will succeed and turn out to be as popular as Social Security and Medicare. So they're using every tactic they can to stop it and weaken it before it takes hold. Who are these people? Well, this is where it gets really interesting. Let's talk about the Republican Party. It's a coalition of some very unlikely and uncomfortable allies of convenience. The Republican Party is a haven for resentful, older white people. It's a haven for religious fundamentalists who want to impose Christian equivalent of Sharia law on the nation. It's a haven for people who deny science. It's a haven for neoconservatives who want to impose American values around the world by force. And yes, it's also a haven for some very smart libertarians, anti-interventionists, some blacks, Latinos, and gays. But most significantly, it's a haven for pragmatic, non-ideological corporate business interests, the money folks, who may yet bring some sanity into this. You know the saying, politics makes strange bedfellows. Let's be clear, I'm not saying all Republicans are bigots. Most aren't. But the party is a haven for bigots. It actively courts them and it exploits their resentments for votes. That's their strategy. In fact, current Republican strategists say that the way to respond to the changing demographics and browning of America is to work very, very hard and get as many white votes as possible. I'm not making this up. That is their strategy. And demonizing America's first African-American president and his signature legislation is one of their favorite tactics. They win on this issue even if they don't bring about any changes to the law. They win because it's a crowd pleaser with their most active and riled-up supporters. And you can bet they're doing a lot of fundraising, bilking the rubes over this one. Oh, so it's just a fundraising scheme? No, not just. More important, what we're seeing playing out is a power struggle within the Republican Party. And so far, it looks like the most extreme wing is winning out and intimidating the voices of sanity and reason inside the party. Well, how's that possible? Well, I'll tell you that in part 3. That's where I get to use my metaphor about the World Cup and the Super Bowl. Until next time, I'm Mickeleh. If you missed part 1 of my series on the government shutdown, here it is. Part 3 goes here. If you want a primer on why the U.S. needs healthcare reform, you can't do better than John Green's data dump. And if you're in a country with a parliamentary system, you might be interested in my video about why the U.S. has divided governments. It's King George's fault. Don't forget to subscribe, follow me on Twitter, and circle me on G+. Does the G stand for Google or Ghost Town? Let's continue the conversation in the comments. Bye now.